The dead will walk the earth.
They walk among us, in our games, movies, books, television. You can't escape them. For decades, they have been a part of our culture. But where did they come from? How did they reach us and spread their infection? And why did they come here? They are the undead, and this is their story. We meet the victims, those whose lives they have touched in one way or another. But do they understand? In order to understand something, its history must be known. Where did the undead come from?
The idea of undead came from the voodoo religion. The idea of zombies came from the voodoo religion as a kind of a reanimated corpse, but I'm not sure that the death was actually a part of it. Basically, the person became unliving and an automaton, something without any will of its own, and it was ordered around by a voodoo master. And it was part of the religion. It was basically a part of like removing the life from something but keeping the animation in it.
All right, voodoo. But voodoo culture and pop culture are two very different things. What was the bridge for that gap between them?
It began in the 1920s. There were some books published about having encounters with zombies and with voodoo practitioners. There were examples of eyewitness encounters of zombies. There was also early movies dealing with voodoo would have zombies that were voodoo automatons. So it came into popular culture through experiences, first-hand experiences, of people going down there, and then that being expanded upon in the popular media.
It's because of Romero. Like, to keep them in pop culture that long, he had to make an amazing movie about them, which was the whole of the Dead series.
Dawn of the Dead, and I saw that in 1979 in the theaters when it first came out. It was my first experience with a very graphic type of horror movie. I was 18 years old, and I saw previews of it on TV, and it's a scary movie. Okay, fine. So I went with my boyfriend at the time, and we went. I was not prepared for the amount of goriness and violence that this movie was about, and we were watching it, and I remember just being scared out of my mind. I was like screaming in the movie, just screaming, and the effects were so. I mean, it seems silly because, like, you know that dead people aren't gonna walk around eating live people, and then they turn dead, and then they walk around and eat the other live people, and it was taking place in this mall. And I remember just freaking out at just how scary and how graphic it was. I was so scared, I couldn't sleep, and that movie affected me so much I couldn't drive at night for 2 weeks.
So it was the director George Romero who made voodoo automatons into the zombies we know today. Romero's influence, however, was only the beginning. There are now countless movies, books, games, and other such outlets for zombies to thrive in.
Resident Evil,
The Zombie Survival Guide by the Max Brooks,
28 Days Later,
Dawn of the Dead,
Dead Rising,
Dead Alive.
World War Z.
But why, though? Why would such a terrible concept become so popular?
I think anything that deals with the concept of death or undead is appealing to people. A basic fear, a basic uncertainty of life is death and what happens afterwards. And zombies seem to be a way of not really cheating death, but getting around death or dealing with death in a different mode than normal. I think that it also appeals to people, and people have a very basic fear of being assimilated, of being turned into something they're not, and being forced into that. Examples of that, the going from movies, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Star Trek, The Borg, all right, all of those things come together to kind of form this idea of the ultimate enemy as being ourselves with our personality removed, and that's very much what zombies are.
The thing about zombies and the fact that they can, like, eat your brain and eat your flesh and tear your flesh, and it doesn't look like it takes too much from them. It's kind of frightening. The other thing that's so terrifying about zombies is it could be your next door neighbor that you've known for like years, or it could be like your grandmother. How creepy would that be to be eaten by your grandma?
It's probably just the general fear of your loved ones coming back to life and either being killed by them or having to kill them yourself. I mean, it's just terror. It's like, why do people make horror movies? To scare people.
Fear is appealing. Zombies are fearsome. It makes sense. But will they continue to thrive? For years they have been among us. But how can we be sure that they will go on for longer?
Every generation needs to sort out its own dealings with its own mortality, and they interpret that through popular culture. The Tao Genji was in, one of the first novels in history, again from Japan, and it dealt with death. It dealt with how to deal with death. And it's just a very basic element of all human life, and therefore it's something that we need to interpret just as with love or with birth, with life itself. We all deal with it in our own way.
There you have it. The abstract concept of death made concrete. You fear them, you love them. They disgust you, they attract you. This relationship is not likely to change, which is why the undead will walk among us for many years to come.
Hey